The power to arrest someone, that's a huge deal. It's one of the most serious powers a state has. It can take away your freedom, it can cause incredible humiliation, and the effects can stick with you for a lifetime. So what happens when that power is misused? Today, we're diving into a landmark Supreme Court judgment that completely rewrote the rules of arrest in India. Think about it. For a long, long time, the unofficial rule was often arrest first, investigate later. But what are the consequences of that? You get a justice system totally clogged with cases that are going nowhere, and you get an immense, crushing cost to individual freedom. This is the exact problem the Supreme Court had to face head-on. Okay, look at this number, 15%. This isn't just a random statistic. It's a massive red flag pointing to a much, much deeper problem. This is the conviction rate for cases under Section 498A of the Indian Penal Code, a law that was specifically created to protect women from dowry harassment. And this chart, wow, it really tells the whole story. The gap is just shocking. On one hand, you have the police filing official charges in nearly 94% of these cases. But then, look at the outcome, only a 15% conviction rate. This huge difference really only points to one thing: widespread arrests that were, in many cases, just not necessary. So this begs the question, right? How did a law that was meant to be a shield for vulnerable people become, in the Supreme Court's own words, a weapon? Let's break down Section 498A. It was created for a really noble purpose: to fight the horrible problem of dowry harassment. Now, to give it some real teeth, the offense was made cognizable, which basically means police can arrest without a warrant, and non-bailable. But those very powers also open the door for it to be misused. And the court, they did not hold back. You can see it right here in this quote from the judgment. They said the law's power had earned it a dubious place of pride. It was being used to harass not just husbands, but the relatives too. We're talking elderly grandparents, even family members who've been living out of the country for years. And the numbers the court looked at were just mind-boggling. In 2012 alone, nearly 200,000 people were arrested under this one section. And get this, a quarter of them were women, often the mothers and sisters of the husbands, just swept up in the arrests. This single law had become one of the biggest drivers of arrests in the whole country. So this whole culture of casual arrest was finally put to the test in the case of Arnesh Kumar. He was facing arrest in a dowry case, and he sought something called anticipatory bail to protect himself. He fought his case all the way to the Supreme Court, and his fight became the trigger for changing the entire system. What's so fascinating here is that the problem wasn't that we didn't have laws to prevent this. We did. The real issue was a total failure to follow them. There was this giant gap between what the law actually required and what was really happening on the ground. The law itself was actually pretty clear. Section 41 of the Code of Criminal Procedure said that for crimes punishable with up to 7 years, an arrest should only happen if it's truly necessary, to prevent another crime or to make sure there's a proper investigation. And the police had to write down their reasons. But the reality? It was just automatic arrest based on nothing more than a complaint. And this right here, this is the heart of the court's reasoning. They basically said, look, just because a police officer can arrest someone doesn't mean they should. The power to arrest has to be justified. Officers were now being told they had to ask themselves, is this arrest really necessary? What purpose will it actually serve? So, faced with this massive system failure, where both police and the lower courts were often just acting like rubber stamps, the Supreme Court decided, all right, that's enough. It was time for them to step in and to do it decisively. And the court couldn't have been clearer about its mission. They literally said their goal with this judgment was to make sure police don't arrest people unnecessarily and that magistrates don't just casually and mechanically sign off on detentions. They were tackling the problem from both sides. So how did they do it? Well, the court didn't just offer some friendly advice. No, they laid down a brand new mandatory procedure for every arrest. These clear step-by-step instructions are what we now all know as the Arnesh Kumar guidelines. The new procedure is simple, but it's incredibly powerful. First, no more automatic arrests, period. An officer has to be satisfied that it's necessary. Second, they have to fill out a checklist based on the law. Third, that checklist has to go to the magistrate. Fourth, the magistrate can't just glance at it. They have to review it and record their own satisfaction that the arrest is justified. And finally, and this is the big one, if you don't follow these steps, there are serious consequences, all the way up to contempt of court. Now, this whole thing might have started with Section 498A, but the court made it very clear that the impact of this ruling would be far, far broader. This wasn't just about fixing one law, it was about fixing the system of arrest itself. And this, right here, is the key takeaway. The Arnesh Kumar guidelines now apply to a massive category of criminal cases all across India. 7 years. That's the magic number. The court explicitly said these new rules apply to all cases where the maximum punishment is a prison term of up to 7 years. I mean, think about it. That covers a huge portion of the Indian Penal Code. It fundamentally transformed the arrest process for millions of people. At the end of the day, this judgment is so much more than just a procedural tweak. It's a fundamental rebalancing of power between the citizen and the state. It's a vital safeguard for liberty, forcing law enforcement to justify every single arrest and reminding the judiciary of its solemn duty to protect that liberty. So the court put a clear, logical framework in place. They gave us the rules, the checklists, and the consequences. But it leaves us with this one big, lingering question, doesn't it? Can a set of directions, no matter how powerful, truly change a decades-old culture of arrest first, ask questions later? That's a question the Indian justice system is still grappling with today.